What's up YouTube? Today I'm going to be doing a really cool video and what I hope is going to be a series of videos on Docker containers. This video is going to be my overall top 5 or maybe 6 Docker containers. We're going to see how far I get on this list. Eventually I want to do some other lists like top 5 for infrastructure, top 5 for entertainment, top 5 for like all kinds of different things because there's just so many Docker containers out there. It's hard to just, collect those lists and get them kind of small, but I wanted to do an overall today. Like if you install nothing else, definitely look into these Docker containers. And we're going to start right now. My number one Docker container, of course, has to be a container management system. So I'm going to show you 2 that I like a whole lot. The first one is Dockge. It's the one that I use most. It's the one that you guys see me displaying right here and that I use for a lot of my videos. Dockge is super beginner friendly. It was made by the same guy, Louis Lamb, who makes Uptime Kuma, which is the Docker container that's going to be on another list at another video at a later point. But this is just, it's pretty amazing. I think it's pretty simple. I really love the way he moves the interface and arranges things so that we can see logs and Docker Compose files and things that are running within stacks and all the output up here. I think this is just a really cool, clean way to look at it. Portainer is another way to go. This is the Portainer interface that I actually use. I think it's a little more complicated, but if Dockge didn't exist, this would be what I would use. I think this is actually not a terrible thing. I just don't think it's as functional in some ways as Dockge. I should probably do a whole video on Dockge versus Portainer, but I think either of them is really great. I think this has got a little bit steeper of a learning curve, but there's also more features, so that's always the trade-off. With something that's more complicated, you get more usability, but it's also harder to learn in the first place. So that's why I kind of like Dockge for beginners, because it's just so approachable. But Portainer is where a lot of professionals will really do container management, not just because it does Docker, but also does Kubernetes, and it does a whole lot of other things here that are more enterprise class. And of course, there is an enterprise version, which is paid. This is the community edition, and that's the one that I run because I don't really pay for things in my Homelab. I'm broke. So this is what I would use, and it's my number one Docker container because all other Docker containers are going to run through one of these 2. So that's my number one pick for the first thing you should install is, in fact, a container management system so you can launch all your other containers from there. My next pick I kind of gave away. It's the ARR Stack. It's right here in my Dockge, and I like the ARR Stack a lot, and here's why. The first time I ever got into servers and into Docker, into all these things, it was because I wanted to get away from Netflix. I wanted to be able to monitor and manage my own media that I already had hard copies of stuff for, backed up from my DVD collection from back in the day. And I had quite a DVD collection back when Netflix used to actually physically send you DVDs. So I had a lot of media and I had no way to manage it. And I found the R Suite and I thought, this is amazing. And it's grown so much too. That's the great thing about it. Here, the nice thing about the R Suite and the ARR Stack is if you can figure out how to do this, there's very little you won't be able to tackle when it comes to Docker. This is getting containers to talk to other containers and to get them to orchestrate all together and to have them all work synergistically. That's actually not that easy. People get paid for that, like systems administrators and stuff. That's a real job. So doing that with media is a different thing. But the fact is, if you can do it, that's a pretty cool skill set to have, and it makes you pretty dangerous in terms of the IT world. You can do a lot if you can get this stack up and running. And you see here, I've got, I don't even know, maybe 10 different containers within this ARR Stack. And you'll see here too on the wiki, for example, in the ARR Suite over here, I've expanded to quite a few other things that probably aren't even on that ARR Stack. There's just a lot of really cool things. And if you want to go even more, you can go over to Raven-centric and take a look at even more what they call star apps that I'm not even listing here because I don't have a use for everything and I can't possibly cover everything in this repository. There's got to be 50 plus apps in Awesome R. So yeah, go over there and check it out if you haven't seen it. But I think the ARR Stack is definitely my number 2 most favorite thing to run because even though it's not a single container, it all acts as a single function, which is media management. So I recommend, if you haven't gotten into this yet, go ahead and give it a shot because if one thing, you're going to learn a lot. And 2, it's really cool once it's working. You definitely feel like a big deal. So if you don't have an ARR Suite running right now, go ahead and check it out and see if you can get maybe just a couple containers to work to each other. If you can get Radarr, Sonarr, and Qubit to all talk to each other, that's a pretty big victory right there. Everything else is pretty much just a bolt-on. So I recommend you go ahead and check that out. And for me, it's probably the number one thing that people come to this channel for. So it has to be my number 2 right after Dockge Portainer to launch and, of course, orchestrate all of the containers for the ARR Stack. My number three should really be part of the ARR Stack, but it's not. It's the media server itself, and in my case, Jellyfin. Now, you guys have probably been on this channel long enough and seen some of the stuff I've done long enough to know that I actually don't run Jellyfin. I run MB, but the only reason I run MB is because somebody bought me the lifetime subscription as a gift. That was their way of saying thank you, so I thought that was really cool. So I've always had the ability to do hardware transcoding with MB because somebody had paid for that on my behalf to do it. But if I didn't get that, I'd be on Jellyfin. Now, this is the demo.jellyfin.org example. All this stuff is in the public domain, of course, and this is not my Jellyfin at all. This is just a public one that's being used by the Jellyfin people to show that this is the server and this is how it works. So this is pretty cool. I like Jellyfin a lot. I think in terms of the #1 apps people use, this has got to be super up there because personally, how else are you going to get to actually view anything from the ARR Stack, which is one of the main reasons people again come to this channel and just get into this whole world to begin with, is to learn how to take stuff out of the cloud and have ownership of what they have. So I think it's really cool that Jellyfin is completely free. It gives away 100% of its functionality without charging anything. It's not a freemium, where you have to pay to have paywall features or anything like that. It's just out there. So I'm like, man, this is really cool that Jellyfin even does this to begin with. So my hat is off to the guys who developed this and they keep it up and going. It's a pretty amazing piece of software for your media management and media viewing. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it yet. It is my #1 recommendation on this channel for how to stream media. My number 4 is Immich. I will tell you that I know you guys probably can't see this, or maybe you can. In terms of this channel, Immich is the #1 video on this channel with, at the time, over 18,000 views, where none of my other videos have come even close to that. And that's pretty amazing to me because when I made Immich, I just kind of did it as an afterthought. Never did I think it'd be the #1 most watched content on my channel. I think it's for good reason. Immich is pretty amazing. As you see, here's the Immich site, immich.app. It does a cool, an amazing job of really just organizing photos and having you see them anywhere. So you can see here there's the 2 phone screens, Android and of course iPhone, down here where you can see what it would look like on your phone, on your mobile. This is the desktop app behind it. There are just so many cool things that Immich can do. And I think a lot of people probably run it just for the reason of the fact that it is 100% free. It's got great photo management. It finally has the ability to do things like add external libraries so you don't have to re-upload all your photos again if you've already got them in a folder. It does all the cool machine learning things like recognizing faces and tagging people. There's everything you can do with any other photo management tool, you can do with Immich. And of course, you own all of that data. It's not sitting in the cloud. It's on your servers. It's accessible from anywhere with a great app and a great desktop UI. So Immich is pretty amazing. And I shouldn't have to tell you guys that because you probably already know because you're probably already running it, which is the reason that it's #1 on this channel. So I had to include it on this list because I'm like, man, how can you not talk about the #1 most watched video you've ever made? Immich is just amazing. I finally set up a page on the wiki for Immich. I can't believe I've overlooked this for so long. There was never any Immich page on the wiki, so this is out there now. You'll see the TrueNAS and Docker Compose install files here, some basic folder structure for how it works, the instructions step by step for adding external libraries, and of course the video itself for Immich, which you can tell is still using our old images and the old thumbnail format. That's how long ago I recorded this video, but it's pretty awesome. I recommend you go and check it out. Next is my personal favorite way to run my cloud, and that is Nextcloud. And it's definitely not my own personal way. Nextcloud is its own world unto itself. If you don't know anything about Nextcloud, this is pretty much the replacement for all of Google Clouds, or really just anything that Google puts out. Google Talk, Google Calendar, Google Mail, Google File, Drive, Google, everything. Nextcloud is like, their goal in life is to completely eliminate Google from the planet in terms of what the offering is. They want to be able to give you anything Google gives you for nothing, completely free. All you got to do is host it yourself. There's a million plugins for the software, and it does a lot of really amazing things. Here's some of just the overview here, the files, which of course is your Google Drive, Nextcloud Talk, and that's really cool. It's like a nice way to do like a private version of Zoom or Google Chat. They have all kinds of groupware features, so they have calendars and in terms of Office, you can do collaborative documentation where multiple people are working on the same document at the same time, and you can all have the ability to do that simultaneously. It's great. They have an AI built in for the assistant. They have Flow in here, which is like their version of a Kanban board, and they have tasks. there's just so many cool things you can do with Nextcloud, and they're constantly building new plugins. It's its own whole thing. People are sometimes love-hate about Nextcloud because they feel like it's unstable. As long as you get Nextcloud in and you watch the updates and make sure they're not going to do any breaking changes, I haven't personally had any problems with Nextcloud. I've had to reinstall it a bunch of times, but that's because I keep moving it from one place to another, and it doesn't move very well. Once you put it somewhere, it likes to kind of sit there. But I really like Nextcloud. I use it all the time, not just for my personal thing, for work too, because I use it as kind of a Dropbox. When people are trying to send me files, if I don't want to have them install, like, oh, this is a really cool way to like do send files. If you just install this in your computer, you can send it to me directly. Like, they don't want to do that, man. They just want like, hey, send me a link. So I'll do a Nextcloud file drop link, and they just put it in there, and I get it. And that's super simple for a lot of people who are not exactly very tech savvy. So I like Nextcloud a lot for that reason. If you're not using it, I recommend you at least try it. If for nothing else, for like the file management. In my Nextcloud, I have my external NFS shares mounted into Nextcloud through basically just Docker bind mounts, and that allows me to visually manage my files, my media, all kinds of things right through the Nextcloud interface. Instead of me doing something like an SMB or an NFS share where I have to mount that to the computer, now I can be anywhere on any computer and be able to get into those files and those folders and manage them visually and through a web UI, rather than me having to either be on a VPN or have a tunnel attached where I have to be able to mount it SMB or NFS. I don't want to do that on somebody else's computer. I'd rather just go to something.com and have it work. So Nextcloud is also really great for that, and that's one of the reasons I love it the most. Last but not least is going to be VPNs. Now, there's two types of VPNs. You might have seen that from my previous videos. One type of VPN is the type that like Qubit uses, or you might use to get out to the internet to stop your ISP from seeing where you're going and just putting all that data somewhere else. That's not the kind of VPN I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of VPN where if you're out of your house, you want to be able to get to your home network securely without port exposure. So there are two ways to do that. One is NetBird, which is the way I'm using right now. The other, more famous, is definitely Tailscale. Both of these are mesh or overlay VPNs and work the exact same way with DNS hole punching, zero port forwarding on your router. Pretty much they both have a control plane that operates in the cloud that is totally free, and you just install an endpoint on each of your devices, and those devices can then go ahead and pass on things like subnet routing. So for example, if I have this installed on my TrueNAS machine and my TrueNAS machine sits in the 10.99 network, which of course it does, I can publish that route or expose that route through my Tailscale or my NetBird endpoint. And this way, any device I'm on that has NetBird or Tailscale can get to the 10.99 network through my TrueNAS server. Both of them have almost the exact same feature set. The reason I like NetBird just a little bit more than Tailscale is management. There's two areas of management which I think will make the biggest difference here. One is going to be the ACLs. So in NetBird, for example, there's a lot of, it's hard to see on this screen, I probably should just open mine, but ACLs are complicated. For example, which computers and which endpoints are allowed to talk to which endpoints. You can see here on this screenshot, there's an assigned groups little thing here. So each of these groups have peers, and these peers can all talk on these within these groups, and that's the way the ACL works. It allows certain groups to talk to other peers within that group. And I think that's important because I have both work computers and personal machines on my NetBird account, and I don't want any crossover on the networks. And I can do that really simply on NetBird, completely with the UI. Tailscale, you have to go through a JSON file to edit your ACL, and that's way more complicated. I'll be honest with you, I failed at that. I was not good with the ACL and Tailscale. It's one of the main reasons I came to NetBird. The other thing I think NetBird does really well is the way it actually exposes routes. So you'll see here they have the network routes on this side, on this little left pane here. With the network routes, I can choose which endpoint exposes which route through the control plane. Tailscale works a little bit differently. I'd have to control that from the endpoint itself. So if I installed this on my TrueNAS server, for example, on the server itself is where I would tell Tailscale, I'm going to expose a route from this server forward to a different subnet that's that the server sits on. You have to do that at the endpoint. I don't like that because it makes the endpoint setup a little more complicated. NetBird does that in the control plane, which means every single endpoint just gets the same Docker Compose file or the same script to start it up. And then if I want to change subnet exposure or peer routing, I do that from the control plane. I don't have to go and have access to the endpoint once it's already attached. I do all that from the control plane and then I set it up, and I like that more. I like that more for one simple reason. If I lose connection with an endpoint, which occasionally happens, at that point, I can make changes in NetBird from NetBird, whereas Tailscale, I'd have to be able to get access back to that endpoint again to be able to go ahead and change some things when it comes to what it's going to publish or not publish, or route or not route when it comes back up. Now, that's not a complete picture of it. I know the Tailscale people are like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm just talking about the way that the nodes end up coming online and the features and functionality through that node. It has to be done at the node level. It's not done from the control plane. It's mainly just approved from the control plane and then maybe deleted deleted from the control plane, but the initial setup has to be at the node itself, and I don't do that with NetBird, which is why I like it. But I will tell you, either one of these technologies, if you're not using it, you should be. They're both absolutely excellent. It is the #1 way I do VPNs right now back into my own network. I used to use WireGuard a lot. I don't do that anymore because this is just amazing. If you've never tried it, there are 100 features which I'm not naming right now, especially like Magic DNS and the ability to do all kinds of really cool stuff like that. These technologies are amazing. They are the future of network, in my opinion. I love the way that this works. And if you haven't seen that before, I also have a blog post about it that just talks about the main differences between mesh networking versus the old type of networking that we used to do. I think it's amazing. It's WireGuard under the hood, so it's super safe. If you've never done that before, definitely check it out. So guys, that wraps up my countdown list for my top my top Docker apps on my current system. Now again, I want to do more videos that cover other apps and other reasons for using apps, like infrastructure versus entertainment versus maybe productivity, things like that. There are so many other Docker apps out there to do all sorts of things within certain silos, I guess you would say, or certain genres. So I really want to do future videos on that, but I wanted to start with this one and talk about, hey, what are my overall like must-have Docker apps? So I hope you guys like this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments about things I missed or things that maybe you think that should be on this list, please comment below in the comments. And if you have very technical things you want to talk about in terms of setting stuff up and running, or maybe some other long form discussion you'd like to have, please do not have that on the discussion board on the video. Please have that with me in Discord, because that's a better place for us to talk instead of just going back and forth on the comment board. If you want to say thank you to me personally, please buy me a coffee.